The meeting that changed everything. Mark's heart pounded as he stood frozen in the doorway, his gym bag slipping from his fingers. There was his boss, Elise, half-dressed beside her locker, their eyes meeting equal shock. In that split second before he stammered an apology and backed away, something shifted between them, something that would make tomorrow's budget meeting feel entirely different. Neither could have predicted how this awkward moment would transform not just their professional relationship, but their entire lives. "Dad, you're burning the pancakes again," Sophie's voice pulled Mark back to reality as smoke began rising from the skillet. Sunday morning breakfast was their tradition, but lately, his mind kept drifting back to that moment at the gym 3 days ago. Mark Donovan hadn't planned on being a single father at 35. When his wife left 4 years ago, claiming she wasn't cut out for motherhood, he'd thrown himself into two things: raising his daughter Sophie and climbing the corporate ladder at Meridian Publishing. He'd succeeded at both, though not without sacrifice. Dating had become a distant memory, replaced by bedtime stories and overtime. Elise Chen had built Meridian's marketing division from the ground up. At 38, she was known for her brilliant strategies, impeccable white pantsuits, and the cool professionalism that had earned her respect in an industry still dominated by men. Her long dark hair was always perfectly styled, her commands delivered with quiet authority that never needed raising her voice. What people didn't see was how empty her luxury apartment felt each night, or how many weekends she spent alone reviewing manuscripts instead of building a life outside work. Monday morning arrived with uncomfortable inevitability. Mark straightened his tie before entering the conference room, having rehearsed casual greetings that might dispel the awkwardness. But when he walked in, Elise was already seated at the head of the table, engrossed in conversation with the finance team. "Donovan, glad you could join us," she said without looking up, her voice betraying nothing of their encounter. "We were just discussing the fourth quarter projections." Throughout the meeting, Mark found himself studying her when she wasn't looking, not remembering what he'd glimpsed in the locker room, but noticing instead how she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, how her eyes lit up when discussing a project she was passionate about. Had she always done these things, or was he only noticing now? As everyone filed out after the meeting, Elise called after him. "Mark, could you stay behind for a moment?" His colleagues shot him curious glances as they left. When the door closed, the silence between them felt electric. About Friday, they both began simultaneously, then stopped. "You first," Mark offered. Elise straightened a stack of papers that didn't need straightening. "I think we should acknowledge what happened and move past it professionally. It was an accident, and I'd prefer if we could just forget it." "Absolutely," Mark nodded too quickly. "Completely forgotten." But as he turned to leave, Elise added, "Though I am curious how you ended up in the executive locker room. Your membership doesn't include that access." Mark felt his face flush. "Sophie had a swim lesson. I was picking her up and got turned around looking for the family changing area. The door wasn't marked clearly." "You have a daughter?" Something in Elise's expression softened. "Sophie. She's 8. Mark found himself pulling out his phone to show a photo before he could think better of it. "Swimming is our thing." "Well, one of our things." Elise looked at the picture of the grinning girl with her father's eyes and a gap-toothed smile. "She has your smile," she said, then seemed surprised by her own observation. That small exchange shifted something between them. Over the following weeks, their interactions took on a new dimension. Coffee to discuss the holiday marketing campaign turned into conversations about Sophie's school play. Lunch meetings occasionally veered into personal territory. Elise's childhood in San Francisco, Mark's struggle balancing fatherhood with career ambitions. "How do you do it?" Elise asked one afternoon as they walked back from a client meeting. "Balance everything, I mean." Mark laughed. "Badly, most days. Last week I sent Sophie to school with her math homework still on the kitchen counter and her lunch was just a bag of baby carrots and 3 cookies. At least you included vegetables, Elise smiled, and Mark noticed how it transformed her face, softening the professional mask she typically wore. The secret is accepting imperfection, he continued. And lots of calendar reminders. I've built my career on never accepting imperfection, Elise said quietly. How's that working out for you? Mark asked, his tone gentle rather than challenging. Elise didn't answer, but the question lingered between them. The annual company retreat in October became the unexpected catalyst. When Sophie's regular sitter cancelled last minute, Mark faced missing the mandatory weekend event until Elise made an unprecedented suggestion. Bring her along, she said when he explained his dilemma. There's a family option. Most executives don't use it, but it exists. Are you sure? She's energetic and asks about 1,000 questions per hour. I think I can handle it, Elise replied with unexpected playfulness. I negotiate with publishers for a living. The mountain resort was spectacular in autumn colors. While Mark attended morning sessions, Sophie explored the kids' program. But it was the afternoons, hiking trails ablaze with fall foliage, Elise surprisingly comfortable in jeans and sweaters instead of her usual tailored suits. That revealed new dimensions to them both. So you were a competitive swimmer? Mark asked as they rested beside a mountain stream, watching Sophie arrange colored leaves in patterns. State champion butterfly, Elise nodded. My father had Olympic aspirations for me. What happened? I discovered books, she smiled. Much to his disappointment. Is that why you went into publishing? Elise looked surprised. I've never actually made that connection before. Sophie interrupted, presenting Elise with a crown of woven leaves. For you, Miss Elise. To Mark's astonishment, his boss, known for maintaining perfect composure in boardrooms, graciously bowed her head for his daughter to place the makeshift crown on her dark hair. How do I look? She asked Sophie seriously. Like a forest queen, Sophie declared. The highest compliment, Mark said, finding himself captivated by this version of Elise. Wind-blown hair crowned with leaves, cheeks flushed from the hike, laughing with his daughter. That evening, after Sophie had fallen asleep in their cabin, Mark found Elise on the main lodge's deck, staring at the stars. She's wonderful, your daughter, Elise said without turning around. You've done an amazing job with her. She makes it easy, Mark joined her at the railing. She's resilient. After her mother left. I didn't know, Elise said softly. It's not something I advertise at work. Mark shrugged. Rebecca decided parenthood wasn't for her when Sophie was 4. Sent divorce papers from Thailand where she'd found herself, apparently. I'm sorry. Don't be. Sophie deserves someone who wants to be her mother. And honestly, we're better off. He turned to face Elise. What about you? Never wanted the whole family package? Something vulnerable flickered across Elise's face. I always thought there would be time for that later. After I'd proven myself. After the next promotion. After building the division. She gave a small, sad smile. And then suddenly I was 38 with a corner office and no one to go home to. It's not too late, you know, Mark said quietly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Mark thought he might do something completely inappropriate like kiss his boss under the stars. Instead, his phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. Dad, I had a bad dream. The moment broke. Duty calls, he said, holding up the phone. Go, Elise nodded. She needs you. The retreat ended, but something had begun. Back at the office, their professional relationship remained intact on the surface, but undercurrents had formed. Elise found reasons to consult with Mark on projects outside his department. Mark discovered his team suddenly needed marketing input more frequently than ever before. Their colleagues noticed. Whispers circulated. Mark overheard snippets in the break room. Always in her office. and playing favorites. The rumors reached a crisis point when Mark was announced as project lead for the company's biggest launch of the year, a position several senior employees had coveted. "People are talking, Mark," his friend from accounting warned over lunch. "They're saying you got the position because you and Elise are, you know." "That's ridiculous," Mark protested, though his face flushed. "I earned that position." "I know that. But perception matters in this company." That evening, Mark stayed late, determined to prove his worth through work rather than any perceived personal connection. He was surprised to find Elise's office still lit at 8 o'clock. "You're here late," she observed when he appeared in her doorway. "So are you." "I'm always here late," she replied with a small smile. "It's part of my mystique." Mark hesitated, then stepped inside, closing the door. "We need to talk about what people are saying." Elise's expression closed immediately. "I'm aware of the rumors. I got that project lead because I deserved it," Mark said firmly. "Of course you did. Your proposal was excellent. But now everyone thinks that you slept your way into the position?" Elise's voice was sharp. "Welcome to what women in business have dealt with for decades, Mark." The unfairness of her response stung. "That's not fair. I've never—" "No, it's not fair," she interrupted, standing up. "None of this is fair. It's not fair that I can't show interest in someone without it becoming office gossip. It's not fair that I've spent 15 years building my reputation only to have people question my professional judgment the moment I—" She stopped abruptly. "The moment you what?" Mark asked quietly. Elise looked away. "The moment I care about someone." The admission hung between them, changing everything yet again. "I should go," Mark said finally. "Sophie's waiting." "Of course." Elise nodded, professional mask sliding back into place. "We'll continue this discussion tomorrow." But tomorrow brought unexpected crisis. Mark's phone rang at 3 a.m. Sophie had been rushed to the hospital with appendicitis. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of surgical consents, worried waiting, and finally relief when the doctor announced the operation had gone perfectly. Mark sent a brief email to HR about his emergency absence. What he didn't expect was to look up from Sophie's hospital bed that evening to find Elise standing in the doorway, holding a stuffed bear and looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Is this okay?" she asked quietly. "I can leave if it's not a good time." Sophie, groggy but awake, spotted the visitor first. "Miss Elise. Did you bring me that bear?" The tension broke as Elise approached the bed, handing over the gift. "I heard you were very brave today." "The doctors took out a part one don't need anymore," Sophie informed her seriously. "Dad said it's like editing a book when you cut out the parts that don't work." Elise laughed, glancing at Mark. "Your dad has a way with explanations." After Sophie drifted back to sleep, they stepped into the hallway. "You didn't have to come," Mark said. "I know." Elise looked uncharacteristically vulnerable under the harsh hospital lights. "But I wanted to. For both of you." Mark felt something shift inside him, the last wall of resistance crumbling. "This complicates things." "Everything worth having usually does," Elise replied. 2 weeks later, after Sophie had recovered and returned to school, Mark requested a meeting with Elise and HR. His decision hadn't come easily, but it felt right. "I'd like to transfer to the publishing division," he announced. "Editorial, not marketing." Elise looked stunned. "But the product launch, your promotion." "We'll go to someone else who deserves it," Mark finished. "This way, there's no conflict of interest." "Conflict of interest?" the HR director asked, looking between them. Mark took a deep breath. "I'd like to formally disclose a personal relationship with Elise Chen. One that I hope to pursue outside the direct reporting structure." The HR policies were clear. Relationships between managers and direct reports were prohibited, but relationships between employees in different departments were permitted with disclosure. Later, in the privacy of her office, Elise confronted him. "You should have discussed this with me first. Would you have agreed?" "No," she admitted. "I would have told you not to sacrifice your career trajectory." "It's not a sacrifice," Mark said simply. "It's a choice. I'm choosing something that matters more." "And what if this doesn't work out between us?" Elise challenged. "What then?" "Then I'll still be in a department I'm qualified for, doing work I enjoy, and setting an example for Sophie about priorities." He stepped closer. "But I think it will work out." "That's a lot of confidence for a man who's never even kissed me," Elise said, a smile playing at her lips. "I can remedy that immediately," Mark replied, closing the distance between them. 6 months later, Mark stood in his kitchen making pancakes, successfully this time, while Sophie set the table for 3. The doorbell rang, and Sophie raced to answer it. "She's early," Mark called, flipping the last pancake onto a plate. "Miss Elise." Sophie's excited voice carried from the entryway. "Dad made chocolate chip pancakes because they're your favorite. Is that so?" Elise appeared in the kitchen doorway, weekend casual in jeans and a soft sweater, her long dark hair loose around her shoulders. She carried a bag of groceries. "I brought real maple syrup. The stuff you buy is basically flavored corn syrup." "Food snob," Mark accused affectionately, leaning in for a kiss. "Quality matters," she replied, setting down the groceries to wrap her arms around his neck. Sophie made a gagging noise. "You guys are gross." "Absolutely disgusting," Mark agreed, winking at Elise. "Now wash your hands for breakfast." As they sat around the table, Mark marveled at how naturally Elise had fit into their lives. The woman who once intimidated the entire marketing department now helped with third-grade science projects and had strong opinions about which princess movies were sending problematic messages to young girls. "What?" Elise asked, catching him staring. "Nothing," Mark smiled. "Just thinking about how one awkward moment at the gym changed everything." "For the better?" she asked, a rare moment of insecurity crossing her face. Mark reached for her hand across the table. "Definitely for the better." Sophie looked between them. "Are you guys going to get married?" Elise choked on her orange juice while Mark's eyes widened. "Sophie, that's not," he began. "Because Jenny at school says when her mom's boyfriend moved his toothbrush into their bathroom, it meant they were getting married. And Miss Elise has a toothbrush here now." Mark and Elise exchanged glances, both fighting laughter. "Relationships are a little more complicated than toothbrushes, sweetheart," Mark explained. "But not always," Elise added softly, her eyes meeting his with a promise of conversations to come. "Life rarely follows the path we expect. Sometimes it takes an awkward moment, a chance encounter, or walking through the wrong door at the gym to find exactly where we're supposed to be." For Mark and Elise, what began as the most uncomfortable moment of their professional lives became the first step toward building something neither had dared hope for, a family formed not from obligation, but from choice. If you enjoyed this story about finding love in unexpected places, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming content that reminds us all that it's never too late for new beginnings. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country in the comments below.